Good morning, family community.
Good morning.
Family members.
These words that have such impact and meaning. We all long to belong. It is a natural state, part of the human condition. We all long for a beloved community, and this is universal in our species. Universal truths, no matter what culture or faith you are from. But how? How do we create community? How do we sustain it? We are lonely. We are so wounded. We long to belong. This is not news. But the wounds recently are opening wide, more than ever. People are seeking community and talking about building walls. They're building walls for safety and security. They're seeking each other for safety and security. And often this gives voice to frightening words and walks, ways that are filled with anger and hatred. I am not alone in the deep meditations that I've been doing on this. I'm going to give you an urging. There's something called WISE USA, WIS-USA. They're holding something called the Liberty Bell Minute, every day at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. Just like during World War II, there was the Big Ben Minute. This is the Liberty Bell Minute. You can go on WISE USA, or just Google Liberty Bell Minute. Or just remember, at 9 o'clock, spend 1 minute in silence, holding and raising up the community of the world, holding and raising up positive leadership for justice, equity, and compassion. Because we can do this. We are a community. So here today is this invitation. For just a few moments, everybody here has entered into a circle of belonging. Here. Come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. What does that mean, lover of leaving? It is who we are. We get close and we need a little distance. We come close to what we want and we have to take a step back to come back again. Come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. This is important. Though we have broken our vows 1,000 times before, it's not part of what we sing. It's part of what we wrote. That's part of that lover of leaving. Though we have broken our vows 1,000 times before, and often we don't even speak about vows here in church outside of weddings. We're all about wedding vows. Many wedding vows. Everybody should take wedding vows. And again, if the first one doesn't work out, we're good there too. Because it's an idea that we have to recommit, continuously recommit. What is a vow? A covenant. What is a vow? It is a restatement of intentions into this space. And we are fallible. We are going to miss that mark. So we have to come again. We have to open our communities up again and again. Because the tendency is to say, oh, come close, I'm scared. Hug me tight, I'm scared. I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared. And then you're all in a community of one. And you don't belong anymore. We have to practice opening again and again. Dorothy Day in her autobiography says, "We have all known the long loneliness. We have learned that the only solution is love, and that love comes with community." And I really love this quote. It really speaks to the human-animal truth that we're not solitary creatures. We are communal creatures. We need to be with each other even if we are introverts. We need to be with each other. Love comes with community. She writes, not the ad agent version, not the idea that, oh, community service, which is now a legal punishment. But Community comes with love. The Bible is full of references on how to be in community, and everywhere we look, we struggle to see these in actions, and everywhere we look, people are running around identifying the Bible as the book that they follow. And this hurts. It rips us. Well, I'm going to go through a quick list, just so that you have some of it, because so too often we go, oh, I can't look at that book. That book has hurt me. Romans 12:10, love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo no one in showing another one honor. A little competitive. Outdo no one in showing another one honor. 12:16, live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty. Associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. 15:7, therefore welcome one another as Christ welcomed you. Remember, you are fully welcomed. Galatians 5:13, for you were called to freedom. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. Ephesians 32, be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another. Thessalonians 11, therefore encourage one another and build one another up. Peter 4:9, show hospitality to the other without grumbling. John 4:11, beloved, if God so loved us, we ought to love each other. No one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God abides in us, and love is perfected in us. There are more. This is the text that is holy to a large portion of our world. This is a text that has good advice to read. We often hear calls to build the beloved community coined by Josiah Royce. He was an American philosopher. It became Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's ultimate goal. Beloved community. I'm going to read you a quote from Dr. Carl Gregg. He's the minister at the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Fedrick. Quote, after the Montgomery Boy Scouts, in speaking about the larger movement toward which they were building, Dr. King said, quote, the end is reconciliation. The end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. It is this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opponents into friends. And in this love which will bring about miracles in the hearts of men. And of course, I like to think now he would say in the hearts of all. But notice as well that King is not saying that we often accustomed to hearing in our highly competitive society that the end goal is a decisive or even crushing victory of our opponents. For King, building beloved community requires the even harder work of reconciliation, of redemption, of being in right relationship, of transforming opponents into friends. According to the King Center, for Dr. King, the beloved community was not a lofty utopian goal. This is not the transcendentalists who went and created fruit lands and decided we were only going to eat fruit and nuts because that's all God gave us. No, this was a practical idea for Dr. King. It was not to be confused with rapturous images of peaceable kingdoms in which lions and lambs coexist in idyllic harmony. Rather, the beloved community was for him a realistic, achievable goal that could be attained by a critical mass of people committed to and trained in the philosophy and methods of nonviolence. Dr. Gray continues, Dr. King's beloved community is a global vision in which all people can share the wealth of the earth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. In the beloved community, international disputes will be resolved by peaceful conflict resolution and reconciliation of adversaries instead of military power. Love and trust will triumph over fear and hatred. Peace with justice will prevail over war and military conflict. And it is hard to hear those words now. Sometimes it feels like we are so far away. Quote, we look even further back. The vision of beloved community is in many ways a secularized version of what Jesus called the kingdom of God. But too often Jesus is confused with the White Queen of Alice in Wonderland. Christianity is not about believing 6 impossible things before breakfast. Rather, the way of Jesus is about practicing radical kindness and compassion in our day, just as in Jesus did in his day. A love that dares to transgress cultural and tribal divisions. From that perspective, I think G.K. Chesterson's view on Christianity applies equally to Dr. King's vision of the beloved community. Chesterson's quote, it has not been tried and found wanting. It has been found difficult and not tried. End quote. We are experiencing an epidemic of loneliness in a world where people do not have someone that they can call at 3 o'clock or 12 o'clock, be it noon or in the middle of the night. We live in a world where to be in community lacks a definition, so you look it up, right? I love dictionaries. I have great big ones. My husband gave me once a dictionary that said, even 10,000 words are not enough, even 50,000. I have a lot of dictionaries in my home. So I looked it up. Community, plural noun, communities. A group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. Or a group of people living together in one place, especially one practicing common ownership. I don't think any of those really work for us anymore, at all. Charles Vogel has written a new book called The Art of Community. I urge every single one in this congregation to get it. VOGL, The Art of Community. His definition, a group of individuals who share a mutual concern for one another's welfare. Simple, clear, specific, usable, accurate. It applies to Girl Scout troops and bridge clubs. It applies to dining circles and to churches. So we can speak in broad terms. We can speak in big ways. We can talk about faith terms. We can talk about the importance of the ethereal and what that means in the 9 realms of community and all the ethers. But is it practical and helpful? Perhaps. But right now, we need to be into the actual. People in general want steps to a goal of beloved community. Because if we can't see it, all we have is that out there, and the mountain is too far away, and suddenly the clouds have come in, and you cannot even see the goal. So, what do we do? What does it mean to be in community? Well, I mean, it is understandable that we have no idea what it means to be in community, because we're taught, especially in Western society, all kinds of bizarre things. Even the nuclear family is no longer acting with mutual care and concern for each other. We have businesses using the term repeatedly over and over again. Membership in this exclusive community. Come. Buy this condo. Buy this product. We hear it paired all the time with exclusive, as if this was a marriage that was appropriate instead of some kind of unholy alliance. But this is what's really important. Before we can even begin, we have to re-educate ourselves and those around us to what is a community. A community is mutual care. Mutual care, that is the definition. And so then once we say, okay, a community is mutual care for one another. I care that you brought your deck of cards. I care that the coffee was made. Let's have a game of gin rummy. Whatever it is, it's mutual care that has to be there. But how do we identify what's a community? If we are being taught that to buy into this particular Sam's Club makes us a community of wholesale buyers. What does that mean? So Vogel does this really elegant thing. He observes. He's fascinating person. Really like him. He just starts observing, and he comes up with 4 identifiable elements of community. 1, shared values. I like playing cards. I like going to quilt shows. Shared values. 2, membership identity. Who am I in this space? Moral proscription. And 4, insider understanding. And those 4 elements identify all communities. Shared values have currently digressed into ideas that raise us up from caring for one another into these ideas that, do we have a common enemy? Then we have a bond. We have stepped over that line where it means not to care for one another, but to means the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Shared values need to raise up. They need to be values that we share on the road to beloved community. They have to be healthy values that honor the best and highest in each and every one of us. Those are shared values that build and create community. Membership identity. Prickly words. Membership identity is a really sticky wicket for me. And many of us, I think, are very uncomfortable with the whole idea of identity politics. Even as we recognize that identity politics started as a very, very good thing. But for those of you who don't know what identity politics is, it's loosely described as a tendency for people of a particular religion, race, social background, etc., to form exclusive political alliances. And it's that exclusive part that I have a problem with in what has now become what is identity politics. As opposed to before, people said, I identify with that, we have to form a coalition. And therefore, as a coalition of like-minded people, like-hearted people, we can get things done. Identity politics has now become a wall of, no, you can't belong to us, you're not that. But group identity is essential for a community to be cohesive. One way is our individual personal ascription to the 7 principles. We read them, change them a little bit, simplify them, make them work for us in our lives, but that's part of our identity. At the same time we hold that, we hold an identity within a local group. Here, in this moment, a congregation. And more specifically, I have witnessed within different Unitarian Universalist churches, each congregation, and those of you who've gotten others, they have their own kind of group identity, something that is part of their identity. This particular group has an identity that is more green. It is part of the identity that when someone comes in, you feel it, you have conversations about it, it is more green. I have been to communities where it is absolutely very much overt social justice, and it might be overt social justice for LGBTQ. It might be more overt social justice for Black Lives Matter. It might be more overt for schools and public schooling. Each congregation or group has in its community identified, often without speaking it out loud, part of an identity of who they are in that space, in relationship to the outside. Moral proscription. This is one we really shy away from explicitly here. Proscription means things that we don't allow. And we welcome everyone. And we get confused with the idea that welcoming everyone means that we also honor all behavior. Because obviously we don't. We have 7 principles. And those 7 principles are going to be at odds. And this community is no example. I mean, if we don't look and say, yes, we have a line of demarcation which says this is who we are. If we don't honor that, then the shadow of what that is comes up, and it becomes a wall for other people to access us through. But if you are a dedicated neo-Nazi who believes in open carry, who comes to this particular church on any particular day and wants to repeal the 19th Amendment, you're going to come into this space and hear those words, and you will find that that is not your community. But a visitor to your community is someone who can change. They haven't come to belong. They've come to check you out. Is this a place I belong? Like the rat said, don't think I belong here anymore, and the snake said, should I go? There has to be that space to discover your belonging. Just like it would be unwise if you feel that cards are the devil's playground to show up at my mother-in-law's on bridge night. Same idea. And lastly, insider understanding. And I have to say, when I first read that, and I got a copy of this book before it was published just in October, because we were working through it with some others. Love this. And they used the word insider understanding, and I was like, don't like that. I want everything to be completely transparent. Well, all of my little buttons start, anybody get push buttons by that? Just out of curiosity. What do you mean insider? We're open. And I love the answer. Lizzie, if it's as simple as knowing where the coffee pot is? Oh, right. What if it's as simple as having the key code to be able to get into mutual space? What if it's as profound as knowing who's still within your community mourns the loss of a child? Or who has survived cancer? Insider understanding is something that happens in all communities, and it needs to be honored. It does not, however, become knowledge is power, and I know this and you do not. And that is our fear, because we fear this idea of knowledge is power, thinking that power can be owned as opposed to shared. So once we've defined community as a group of individuals who share a common concern for each other and others' welfare, and we've identified these 4 behaviors, how do we create communities that we want? I mean, this is a very sort of practical, sermon that I'm giving, and go get the book. And there's even worksheets. And he did say, I know. There are 7. And I'm just going to read the list, and some of them are going to absolutely push your buttons. This is food for long-term discussion. It's not a meal. I'm just going to give you the menu today and maybe some recipe hints. The first one is boundary. Identifying the line between members and non-members. And they don't mean church members. They mean people who are part of the community and people who aren't. Identifying that boundary also allows people that come to visit to know that they have the privilege of observing without being confused as someone who actually belongs. It also means that as you walk in to a potluck, you know that you were expected to bring a dish because the boundary on a potluck is bringing a dish. And if all you know is that it's a shared meal and come without one, suddenly you have crossed a boundary and you feel out of belonging. Healthy boundaries are there so that we can all belong. And all are welcome to cross the boundary. It isn't a wall. It isn't a door. It is an understanding. Initiation. Observe and create the activities that mark a new member. And we always think of it sort of like, the new member ceremony. But that's actually not true, because there are people here that haven't done their new member ceremony who are actually members of this community. It has to do with how events happen and how they're shaped, and what does it look like to be a member of this. For example, going back to my mother-in-law's past, and I miss her daily. Bringing dip. Being asked to bring dip was an initiation. It might not be what you think it is. You have to observe what this is. 4 is temple. How lofty. A place set aside for the community at that moment in time. Back to the bridge. Card tables being set up transforms the space into the temple of bridge. I don't play bridge, by the way. And we could be in community and be deeply in love, and it was okay that I didn't play bridge. Stories 5. The story I told today is a story that binds me to my community. That story we could tell to each other and remember when, because we wanted to belong. Stories we share allow others to know who we are and what we value. Stories allow us to be vulnerable in safe ways in community. And we all share stories. Remember the time that you thought the pepper was the cinnamon? Wow, that coffee. They allow us to be humble. One of the stories I really like about this congregation is all the boots that were being, it was one of the first when I was first speaking, and you did fundraisers for boots for people who needed feet to work boots. And I thought, wow, that really says putting your boots on the ground. The whole metaphor of that is a story from this community that spoke to me and made me say, I want to come back and preach here again. Symbols. We love symbols, even if we say we don't love symbols. We love symbols. I'm wearing a whole plethora of symbols. I'm wearing nothing but symbols. I've got a UU symbol over here. I've got the giving pause symbol for my other ministry over here. We have chalices. But what symbols are, is they're things that represent ideas that are important to us. And that's all they are. The teacups in a line means that it's important that we offer a libation at the end of this particular gathering. That is an important symbol, that we break bread together and share a something. And last, another pokey one for me, inner rings. I love this. Oh, Lizzie, Beck. It's a path to growth as we participate. Oh, is that all? It's not the same thing as leadership. It's not anything to do with co-owned power, and we confuse these. Not everyone is a leader. Everyone within a community has access to inner rings because time and experience and shared stories and shared values and knowing where the coffee pot is or knowing who to call to get the code to open the door so they can set up chairs early. That's all it is. People who have been traveling the path of that community for a longer period of time. And each element is worthy of a sermon all on its own. And this is what I loved in my meditation. Every single one of our 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism can be found in every single one of these 7 elements. So when you talk about values, you can put all of our 7 principles into that one thing of values. You can also put all of our 7 principles into that one thing about inner rings. And you can actually do worksheets on them, which obviously we're not going to do today. But I leave that out because it's a really deep study on inner rings. What does that mean if I'm looking at the worth and dignity of every being? How does that play out in how I act? It's up to us to discover them and apply them. The King Foundation states, quote, "The core value of the quest for Dr. King's beloved community was agape love, which he describes as understanding, redeeming goodwill for all." Agape love is understanding and goodwill for all. An overflowing love which is purely spontaneous, unmotivated, groundless, and creative. The love of God operating in the human heart. He said that agape does not begin to discriminate. It does not begin by discriminating. It's between discriminating between the worthy and unworthy people. It begins by loving others for their sakes. It begins by loving others for their sakes and, quote, makes no distinction between friend and enemy. It is directed towards both. Agape love seeks to preserve and create community. I'm going to end with another quote from that great big book, John 3:11. For this is the message that you have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Charles Vogel says, go, defeat loneliness, create belonging. The world is waiting for it. Thank you.